Just show the title card, you all know what this is. Series 18 was the second series of Thomas the Tank Engine to be head-written by Andrew Brenner, and it was also the return of several other characters from the original show, as well as being the last series that Ben Small would provide the voice for Thomas. Okay, so Andrew Brenner impressed us classic Thomas fans with Series 17, so would he surprise us again with Series 18? Well, let's take a look. Well, a majority of the episodes are really to show us some of the classic characters, as Andrew Brenner wants to focus on the classic characters from the show. And others are there to introduce some new characters like Samson and the Slip Coaches, and the grumpy old passenger and the Welsh birdwatcher who pulled the emergency communication cord. But like I said, most of the episodes are just focusing on the classic characters, since that's really Andrew Brenner's main focus of the series. So let's talk about the newcomers. Samson is a dignified tank engine with a lot of pride for the work he does. He rarely asks for help or advice to avoid seeming inexperienced around the island. He's also quite arrogant, believing himself to be the island's strongest tank engine. So he's kinda like James, but not quite so vain. And like I said, we also get the reintroduction of some of the classic characters, such as Oliver, Toad the Brake Van, and Duncan the grumpy narrow gauge engine. Now, when I first heard that Duncan was returning, I was absolutely thrilled. I was thinking to myself, they finally brought back Duncan. Now all they have to do is bring back Duke and Bertram. Though that would probably be likely, since Andrew Brenner loves the classic series, I'm assuming. I just found it a great surprise to see Duncan return, since we hadn't seen him since Series 12. So I thought this was a really great return for him. And his first episode when he encounters that grumpy passenger was just the perfect return for him. I mean, I just find it so blimmin' hilarious to find Duncan dealing with a grumpy passenger, and who is surprisingly even more grumpy than Duncan is. That was just hilarious.
Why do people always think it's me who's always grumbling? I mean, I've never grumbled in my life. Me, grumbling? Don't think so.
Along with Duncan, we also get the return of Oliver the Great Western Engine, and Toad the Brake Van, and even Henrietta gets to talk again after all these years. And I'll admit, it is awesome to hear her talking again after so long, but did they really have to give her a face? And remember Timothy and Mariam from Tale of the Brave? Well, in this series we get a bigger glimpse into their personalities, like a lot of the other one-time characters we see in specials. And by one-time I mean the ones who the focus of the story aren't on. But I really do enjoy their personalities, and Marion is one of those characters from media that makes me laugh a few times. She's very enthusiastic and likes to think of herself as well informed, and is happy to share her knowledge. She's very talkative and loves to tell stories of her discoveries. However, not all the engines prefer to stick around and hear her stories. So she's kinda like the little Miss Chatterbox at Sodor. Timothy is friendly, helpful, and loves being really useful, but can also be naive and gullible. And the Slip Coaches are interesting characters too, even though we don't really get much of a glimpse into their personalities in their first appearance. But I hope that Andrew Brenner does have big plans for them, since I think we may have seen them a few times, well, characters like them in the Railway series, but were never introduced to the TV series. So, yeah, cool characters that I think Andrew Brenner should focus on next year. So how does Series 18 hold up? Well, like Series 17 is not as good as the classic series, but I honestly wouldn't expect any series to be. But to its credit, it is better than Series 17. Like, there's lots more episodes that are better than the Series 17 episodes. And the animation is really good too. Like, I love how there's so much improvement in the animation as time has gone by, especially with those sunset moments. It just looks awesome to me. And it's really nice to see certain areas from the classic series that have been gone for ages, such as pretty much every location from the narrow gauge railway that we all recognise. And if I had to pick some favourite episodes, one of them would definitely be Old Reliable Edward, as Gordon teases Edward for being old and unreliable, as he says. But when Gordon sees some red trousers blowing on the tracks, he mistakes them for a danger flag and stops, ending up stuck on his hill again. And after Gordon not thanking Edward for helping him up the hill, Thomas and Edward decide to teach him a lesson. and the way they teach him a lesson just cracks me the fuck up, especially with how they own him at the end.
Hello, Gordon. Have you given up following Thomas already?
Thomas tricked me, Edward. He went too slow.
Oh dear. But I must say, you don't seem very reliable. Always getting stuck on your own hill.
Wait, Edward! You need to give me a push.
Oh, but I didn't think you needed any help from me. After all, I'm so old and unreliable.
I'm sorry, Gordon, but I think you just got owned there. Not So Slow Coaches is another one of my favourite episodes too that makes me laugh every now and then. Like, I love how Thomas teases Annie and Clabber whenever they complain about him going too fast or too slow. Then the two coaches find themselves covered up to Caitlin by mistake, so they get a taste of what it's like to go really fast. That was just hilarious. And the episode Thomas and the Emergency Cable kind of reminded me of an annual story called James's Traffic Jam, which, as you may remember, I based on one of my TTTE episodes.
You evil foreigners.
Because it's another one of those moments where the TV series talks about railway realism, such as the fines for pulling the emergency communication cable at the wrong time. Duncan and the Grumpy Passenger is another one of my favourite episodes because it reintroduces us to Duncan. Missing Gator and Long Lost Friend are good episodes as well, because they're basically like mini sequels to Tale of the Brave, where Percy ends up missing Gator and then later on they reunite with each other. And I consider Duncan the Humbug to be one of my favourite Christmas related episodes in the TV series, as it takes another twist on the whole Scrooge story, where Duncan is the Scrooge this time. And it just cracks me up to see him trying not to grumble through the whole day just to get his new coat of paint. It's very obvious that Andrew Brenner's got his work cut out for him as the head writer of the series. And I'm glad that he's the head writer, since he used to write a lot of the old 90s magazine Thomas stories. And some of his stories were even inspirations for some of the Series 3 episodes. And if you don't believe me, check it out on Thomas Wiki. And my only nitpick for Series 18 is the fact that Rosie hasn't had that much screen time to herself. Surprised? And I know I've gone on about this in the past reviews I've done for Thomascember, but I really do think that Rosie deserves more screen time to herself. Even a few episodes to herself as well. And as I said before, she's one of the few new series characters who's not boring. I enjoy her personality, and it may come as no surprise that she's one of my favourite characters from Thomas, as was proven with my TTTE series, as I have her as one of the main characters, as well as Thomas's love interest. So Andrew Brenner, if you're listening to this, then please give Rosie some more screen time to herself. I mean, back in Series 17 she got that permanent lamp on her funnel. I mean, that was a cool addition, so why couldn't you have given her more screen time to herself, or even an episode to herself? And I know I've gone on and on and on about this, but she really is one of the characters I really do enjoy who wasn't from the Railway series. So yeah, definitely give her more screen time, she deserves it. And perhaps bring back Murdoch and Ferguson as well. Oh, and Molly, definitely bring back Molly. So even though Series 18 isn't exactly as good as the classic TV series, and to be honest I don't really expect any new series to be, it is at least entertaining. It's got well written episodes, it's got very interesting characters, and it was nice to see some old characters returning. So it's nice to see the TV series going back on the right track, no pun intended. And I really hope Andrew Brenner writes more episodes like this, and perhaps they could bring back some of the classic writers like Brian Truman, who wrote Twin Trouble. I personally think that it would be good for them to bring back some of the writers from Series 6, since a majority of the Series 6 episodes were pretty enjoyable. But for now, Series 18 is a definite improvement from Series 17, and definitely from Series 8 to 16. Series 18 is definitely better than Series 17, with its new stories, new characters, reintroduction of classic characters, so it's got pretty much everything for every fan of the series, old and new. So if you haven't seen Series 18 yet, definitely check it out. You'll get a lot of laughs with some of the episodes, and you'll be really glad to see some classic characters returning, as well as some new interesting characters. Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure. A lot of people have been asking me to review this special. I've got emails saying like, when are you going to review Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure? When's your review of Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure coming out? This is the best Thomas movie I've ever seen. When are you going to review it? Well, I'm finally going to review it for the last episode of Thomascember this year. So this story is basically combining the railway with the sea. Okay, that's a clever idea. But how does it hold up as a 60-minute story? Well, let's begin with the story. Thomas the Tank Engine is running his branch line with his coaches Annie and Clarabelle. Surprised? While trying to spot Bertie in order to have a race, like they used to do in the classic series. Thomas survives at Farquhar, winning the race against Bertie. Meanwhile, Marion the steam shovel is on the Owlsburg branch line heading to the construction site for a new branch line. While admiring the scenery, she gets a shock when she spots two objects race past her, then decides to get a closer look. And it turns out that she spotted the small railway engines Rex, Bert and Mike, who are happening to deliver ballast for the new branch line, which are being delivered to Duck and Donald and Douglas. The next morning, Thomas goes to fetch Gordon's coaches, which I find kind of confusing. I mean, that used to be Thomas's job, but it's not anymore. I mean, Gordon learned that he's supposed to fetch his own coaches, but anyway. Gordon, being a big blue douchebag that he is, has no patience for Thomas, and Thomas decides to play a trick on him by pushing the coaches to the wrong platform. But doing so, he causes the express coaches to derail across the tracks at Knapford, causing confusion and delay. Yeah, I said it. Later, the Fat Controller is very cross with Thomas, and Thomas desperately tries to blame the fault on Gordon, which kind of makes sense since it was Gordon's fault. I mean, he was the one who started the fight in the first place. But the Fat Controller angrily yells at Thomas that it was 100% his fault, and he's sent to shunt trucks at the construction site for the new branch line as punishment. And while he's away, a new purple tank engine named Ryan comes to help out on Thomas's branch line while he's away, which deeply upsets Thomas. The three small engines see that Thomas is really upset about Ryan supposedly taking his place. So they sing him a little song called Never Overlook a Little Engine, which is amazingly the first time a character has actually sung a song in this show. Well, a really long song, like a musical anyway. I mean, they did sing some small songs in the past, but this is the first time they've done a really big song like a musical. Anyway, Thomas delivers his loads over to the construction site, then pushes flatbeds further past the danger sign. Once he realises his mistake, he applies his brakes firmly, but the ground is so unstable that the flatbeds start falling into the cavern, and then they start to drag Thomas into the cavern. His driver and fireman jump clear, letting Thomas fall into the cavern. Well, that's just straight up common sense. Thomas then spots an old pirate ship, which he cannot believe is there. When Duck brings Rocky to help lift Thomas out of the cavern, the Fat Controller is once again really cross that Thomas has made two mistakes in one day. So he sends Thomas to the steamworks to be repaired. And even though they do repair him, they just don't repaint him for some reason. And I don't know, I don't really get why they did this. Anyway, after Thomas is repaired, he finds out that everybody thinks that Rocky found the pirate ship when it was actually Thomas who found it. Marion thinks that there's a buried treasure on the island, and since the pirate ship was found, then there's obviously going to be buried treasure somewhere. So she tries to make a wish from Rex, Bert and Mike, thinking that they're magic engines. What an imagination she has. Meanwhile, a mysterious sailor named Sailor John and his boat Skip are watching the whole time, as John is out for the treasure as well. After Thomas gets repaired, he's sent back to the branch line site to do some more work there. That night on the site, Thomas is awoken and spots a ghost boat and decides to follow it. When he reaches the cavern, he finds out that the boat wasn't really a ghost boat, but instead a railboat, which turns out to be Skip and Sailor John. Thomas and John eventually become friends and start their hunt for the treasure. But during the daylight, Sailor John has to go back to the sea, as he says that they've run out of shovels. But in reality, he doesn't want to get spotted by anyone else, since he's a pirate. When Thomas goes back to the yard, he forgets to tell Ryan that the coal he's taken is some bad coal that Thomas took the day before. When Ryan gets back with some trucks full of dynamite, some sparks from his funnel hit one of the dynamite sticks, which sets it off. Thomas then quickly bumps the trucks out of the way into the caverns to avoid any damages. When the fallen dynamite falls into the cavern and explodes inside, Thomas is cheered by everybody on the site. Except for the Fat Controller, who believes that Thomas is up to no good again. Despite Thomas's explanations, the angry Fat Controller refuses to believe him. Later that night, when all the engines are asleep, Thomas wakes up and sees Sailor John heading towards the cavern and decides to help him look for the treasure again. But after searching for hours and hours at the site and not finding any treasure, Sailor John becomes very suspicious that Thomas might have taken the treasure for himself, since only he, John and Skiff saw the map. Then after Sailor John and Skiff leave the site, Marion wakes up and it finds out that she actually did find the treasure. The Fat Controller is amazed by the treasure and decides to put it in a museum, and congratulates Marion, which is really fair. I mean, she did find the treasure, even though she didn't even know she had it in the first place. As Thomas is sent to take construction waste to the dump, he sees Henry rushing past afraid of the lost pirates that Salty told him about earlier. After turning the bend, he is shocked to come face to face with Sailor John, demanding where the treasure is. After Thomas explains what happens, John takes it pretty well.
I haven't been searching all this time to see that treasure end up in a museum! It's for me!
But despite his demands to get the treasure back for him, Thomas refuses, as he knows that the treasure was stolen and didn't belong to John in the first place. And the rest of the film is basically Thomas trying to protect the treasure from Sailor John, which leads to a big climax and a really exciting chase scene at the end. I remember during the summer of last year when I said that The Adventure Begins is the best Thomas feature length special ever. Well, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure managed to top it. When I bought this on DVD, I had no idea what to expect from it. Was it going to be as good as the trailers made it out to be? Was it going to be better than the trailers? And then to my surprise, it turned out to be better than I thought it was going to be. It even topped The Adventure Begins on the best Thomas feature-length specials list. Now, if I have any problems with this film, it is in one minor area, which is I personally think that the Fat Controller was being a little bit too harsh on Thomas. Yeah, I mean, with the Snapford Station incident and the cabin incident, I get. But seriously, even after Thomas saves everyone's lives from exploding dynamite, the Fat Controller believes that Thomas is up to no good. And even though Thomas tries to explain to him, the Fat Controller's just there like, "No, number one engine of mine is going to finish an important sentence while I'm around!" I mean, seriously, dude, couldn't you have just let Thomas get a fucking word in? I mean, the guy just saved everybody on the construction site from exploding dynamite. He just saved everybody from an incident like that Tugs episode, Munitions. Jesus, give the guy a break, you fat shit. Oh, and don't you dare insult the guy by congratulating him at the end. No. You give him like a medal or a special prize or something, you fucking fuck. Alright, I've had my bitching. Now on to the good stuff. But besides my problems with the Fat Controller being too harsh on Thomas at times, this is a really great special. I mean, pretty much everything about it is really great. Like, the sets are really nice, and it's really good to see some of the classic sets. Marion's side story is a lot of laughs, the small engines are really entertaining, and it is nice to see them introduced in a similar way to how they were introduced in the Railway series. And that chase scene with Thomas and Sailor John is just bloody awesome. In fact, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but this one is almost better than the Thomas and the Magic Railroad chase scene. I mean, for me it is kind of hard to beat the chase scene with Diesel 10 chasing after Thomas and Lady, but that chase scene with Thomas and Sailor John was just awesome. I mean, we start off with Sailor John riding on Skiff, and then we see him using the big boat for his superior sail power. And then we get the climax at the end where Sailor John's like using shovels and dynamite to try and get rid of Thomas. Jesus, and I thought this was supposed to be a kid's film. But it is a really awesome chase scene, and I don't really know how you can beat this one in the future. I mean, you've got the chase starting off at night time, and then you've got it ending at sunrise. Now that's a hard Thomas the Tank Engine chase scene to beat. But they can sure as hell try in the future. The animation in this special is really, really good. In fact, I'd say it's a complete improvement from the animation of CGI for the past series and specials. Little details like the water in the ocean, that really does look like it's really there to me. And as I said before, I really don't know why they didn't repaint Thomas at the Steamworks and just left him all rusty and dirty and all that. But I personally don't mind it, because to me it just shows how good the animation has gotten since we last saw the CGI animation in Thomas. And I thought it was a really clever way to combine the railway with the sea, like giving Skiff as little sailboats railway wheels. Now that was a really clever idea. You don't really see that often, do you? Another highlight in this special is the fact that many characters from the past have come back, like Donald and Douglas, the Scottish twins. They even make a really clever and hilarious explanation of where they've been.
Well, I never! Donald and Douglas! Haven't seen you two around in a while.
We only went to collect some more rails and sleepers. Hi, so you can build some more track, that's all.
Well, I don't know, but it feels like you've been gone for ages. Cheerio! Oh, cheerio! Don't leave it so long next time!
That's basically what every Thomas fan said, I bet. Even the pack members return and Daisy returns. Yeah, even though it was right at the very end of the special, it still counts as a return. And I really do hope that Andrew Brenner has big plans for her in the future. This film also saw the introduction of Railway Series characters for the first time since Series 4, in Rex, Bert and Mike the Small Railway Engines. Rex, Bert and Mike the Small Railway Engines were Railway Series characters that we got to see in the Railway Series books, but unfortunately were never introduced into the TV series. Until this year! And so far their personalities are exactly as I remember from the books. And like Daisy, I do hope that Andrew Brenner has big plans for them in the future. Yes, they're really fun characters, especially with their crazy musical number, Never Overlook a Little Engine. And the visuals are just so amazing from that music video. It's kind of like a big-lipped alligator moment. Except it actually does serve a purpose in the film. As for the new characters, we have Ryan, a purple tank engine who was sent to help out on the railway, and would also eventually become the new engine who runs on the new branch line. And when I first saw this character, when the Fat Controller said that he'd be taking Thomas's place on his branch line while Thomas was serving his punishment, I was literally thinking, oh my god, they're not going to do Thomas and Stanley from The Great Discovery again, are we? Oh god, we've already had this once, please don't do it again, god! But thankfully we didn't get a repeat of The Great Discovery. This was done in a very different way. It's kind of similar to The Great Discovery, but very, very different as well. I mean, Ryan's got a very good personality, kind, helpful, and always willing to help out his friends. And he even shows concern for Thomas after all the shit he's been through. Now, if that's not the sign of a good friend, I don't know what the hell is. There's Skip, the sailboat, who was given railway wheels so he could run on the rails. He was pretty much Sailor John's sidekick in the film, even though he didn't really know Sailor John's true intentions. He just went along with it because, well, Sailor John was operating him. But by the end of the film, he redeems himself by betraying Sailor John and helping out Thomas. And I hope Andrew Brenner has more plans for him, because I think it's really interesting to see a boat run on the rails. And last but not least, there's Sailor John, voiced by Sir John Hurt. What can I say about this guy? He's nasty, diabolical, clever, and very piratey. His only interest is finding the lost treasure of Sodor and keeping it for himself. And I really did enjoy the relationship between him and Thomas in the film. At first it almost seemed like the relationship between Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins, like when they started off as friends and then became enemies. And what I really love about this special is how sinister and nasty and diabolical John Hurt is as Sailor John. Like a lot of John Hurt's performances I've seen over the years, he just plays the part of Sailor John really well. Like, whenever I hear his voice, I don't see John Hurt trying to play a character, I literally hear the character he's voicing. And I also love how nasty and diabolical he is as Sailor John. Which is kind of startling for me, because I've normally seen him playing likeable characters. And this movie also had some cameos from an animated Reverend Wilbert Awdry, which is very clever since it was said that a fictional character of him named the Finn Clergyman visited the island every now and then. So I thought that was a pretty good callback to the Railway series, as well as a good nod for 70 years of the Railway series as well. So in conclusion, Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure is one of the greatest films I've ever seen, as well as being the best Thomas the Tank Engine film I've ever seen. Sodor's Legend of the Lost Treasure is definitely the best Thomas feature-length special to come out of the series. And it was another great contribution to the 70th anniversary of the Railway series. So I'd definitely say that this special is number one of the Thomas specials. And if you haven't seen it yet, definitely check it out. You won't be disappointed with the story, the characters, and the references to the Railway series, as well as new characters and old characters returning. Ever since I started doing Thomascember, I wasn't really sure if the Thomas series was going to improve or not since the CGI started. But after going through the specials that Andrew Brenner did, as well as the episodes that he wrote, I'd say that the show is definitely improving. In a good way. And it's just been great to go through all these things through Thomascember throughout the years. And I want to thank you all for joining me in these Thomascember series, even if the most recent ones are really short. But nevertheless, I want to thank you all for joining me and hope that you all have a Merry Christmas.